Can you smell that? It's not just pine wood. It's the scent of burnt flesh, mingled with the heavy perfume of frankincense. Spain, 1480. If you think faith is only about salvation, you've never met a man who decided to burn the sin out of a nation's very soul. His name was whispered in terror. His footsteps in the empty halls of the Alhambra Palace made kings tremble. Grand Inquisitor Tomas de Torquemada didn't seek power, he sought purity, and the price of that purity was measured in thousands of pyres. Are you ready to see how a single monk turned a vibrant kingdom into a torture chamber in the name of God? Stand, the trial begins. The birth of the hammer. Tomas de Torquemada did not emerge from the abyss. He came from the silence of a monastery. The nephew of a powerful cardinal, he trained his body in severe deprivation, believing that comfort was a back door for the devil. He never ate meat, slept only on the hard floor, and wore a coarse cilice, a hair shirt that rubbed his skin raw every hour. This asceticism was his armor. When he became the confessor to Queen Isabella of Castile, he gained control not over a scepter, but over the very mind of Spain's future ruler. Torquemada convinced her to unify Spain, she had to purge the foreign from its blood. For him, foreign meant the Marranos, Jews who converted to Christianity but secretly practiced their old rites. In his eyes, they were an infection that prayer could not cure, only fire could. He truly believed he was saving their eternal souls by burning their mortal bodies, and that belief made him the most dangerous man in Europe. The Tribunal of the Holy Office. In 1483, Torquemada officially became the Grand Inquisitor. He built a system that worked with the precision of a Swiss clock, but measured time in screams. The Inquisition became a state within a state. Tomas developed the Instructions, a detailed legal code that dictated how to run an investigation. Its primary tool was denunciation. Brother denounced brother. Neighbor denounced neighbor. Your property was confiscated immediately, with part of it funding the Inquisition machine itself. It was a self-sustaining engine of terror. He created a network of spies known as familiars, who were the Inquisitor's eyes and ears in every tavern and every church. There was no escape, for God saw all, and Torquemada wrote it down. The architecture of pain. For Torquemada, torture was not vengeance, it was the trial of truth, question de tormento. He personally ensured that interrogation methods did not cause death, because a dead man cannot confess, and without confession, the soul is damned to hell forever. The torturers, those silent giants in leather aprons, used three primary methods. First, the garrocha. The victim was suspended by ropes with heavy weights on their feet, slowly dislocating every major joint. Second, the toca, water torture, where a cloth was forced down the throat and jar after jar of water was poured, simulating drowning. And the most terrifying, the potenza, the rack, which tore muscles from the bone. Torquemada believed that the flesh must suffer so the spirit could speak the truth. Every single word of confession was meticulously recorded by a notary under the dim light of candles in the basements of Seville. These transcripts still exist, preserving the agony of an entire generation. Auto de Fe, the Feast of Faith. The culmination of Torquemada's labor was the Auto de Fe, the Act of Faith. It was not merely an execution, it was a grand theatrical spectacle designed to inspire both horror and awe in the masses. Massive platforms were erected in the main squares of major cities. Thousands gathered, celebrating it like a holiday. The condemned were paraded through the streets in shameful conical hats, carroza, and yellow tunics, San Benito, painted with devils and licking flames. Torquemada often attended personally, sitting on a raised throne, motionless like a stone statue. Those who recanted at the last moment received a mercy. They were strangled before the burning. But those who persisted in their beliefs were burned alive while the crowd sang psalms. The flames of the Inquisition's pyres were visible for miles. To the Grand Inquisitor, this was the sacred light driving away the darkness of heresy. He believed every smoke plume was a step Spain took toward absolute unity and divine greatness. Expulsion and the Great Purge. In 1492, the event Torquemada had prepared for decades finally happened. Granada, the last Moorish stronghold, fell. Now Spain was entirely Christian, but that was not enough for Tomas. He presented the kings with an ultimatum. Either all Jews leave the country within 4 months, or they accept baptism. When the wealthy Jewish communities offered King Ferdinand 30,000 gold ducats to revoke the decree, Torquemada stormed into the royal palace, threw a crucifix onto the table, and shouted,
"Judas betrayed Christ for 30 pieces of silver, and you want to sell him for 30,000? Sell him then!"
Kings backed down. Hundreds of thousands of people left their homes, abandoning all their property. Those who stayed and converted under pressure became the next victims of the Inquisition. Torquemada created a society built on the concept of limpieza de sangre, purity of blood. Thus was born a racial segregation justified by religion. The paranoia of the old man. By the end of his life, Torquemada had become a living legend of fear. He was terrified of revenge and poisoning. He was guarded around the clock by a private army of 50 mounted and 200 foot soldiers. He saw conspiracies in every whisper behind his back. Even the Pope in Rome attempted to limit his power, seeing that the monks' fanaticism was crossing all bounds. But Torquemada was immovable. He felt he was the only true servant of God left on earth. He retired to the monastery of St. Thomas in Avila, which he had built using confiscated heretic money. There he continued to dictate new, even harsher laws, turning his old age into one long prayer and an endless vigil over the work of his tribunals across Spain. A legacy of ashes. Tomas de Torquemada died in 1498, leaving behind a Spain cleansed by fire and bound by silence. During his 15-year reign, by various estimates, nearly 100,000 people passed through the Inquisition courts, and thousands finished their lives on the pyre. He created a mechanism that survived in Spain for nearly 350 years. His name became a worldwide synonym for intolerance. But for him, he was a hero who saved Spain from collapse and God's wrath. Torquemada's tomb was desecrated in the 19th century, and his bones were burned. An ironic finale for the man who made fire his ultimate argument. Today, we look at his portrait and see a fanatic. But history reminds us, Torquemada was not a monster from a fairy tale. He was a man who was absolutely certain he was right. And that, perhaps, is the most terrifying thing of all.